안녕하세요.
오세요.
Okay, this theme here is the summer solstice, which occurred this past week between last Sunday and today. And a way that I'm thinking to start off the theme is a little bit of a recap of what I started with last week. That is a piece out of what we call the historical fable of the United States in its mosaic and the diachronic consequences that for everybody involved. I have a very sufficient Native American education, and so I definitely have other ways to some of these things, and just to be able to mention it. So I kind of start with the idea of Coronado. He really was a horseback privateer. He launched a huge expedition from Mexico. He was licensed to attack and rob whom he believed were Berbers. That with the expulsion of Semitics from Spain itself, which included Jews, and then followed by the Berbers, the idea was that people escaped with their money, their gold, and so forth. And so he definitely convinced people that he knew where these people were and he could track them down and so forth. And his journals and the reports, are studded with mentions and things that makes no doubt that he believed that these people really were the Berbers. And it's quite amazing of all that. And I'm going to start with just that when he and his men approached this pueblo in western New Mexico, now called Zuni. Zuni is not Zuni name is not the name in those people. Their name is Shui, meaning the travelers, and that is the name that the Egyptians knew of them in North Africa, and they still have retained that name with the same kind of enunciation as was in Egypt. So that's quite remarkable. And the name of the pueblo is actually Hawiku. Ku is the suffix for house. Hawiku, meaning the house of the goddess. The goddess is the Kibeli, and later pronounced, Cybele, with the late Latin C there. And she was very major throughout the Mediterranean. Seems to have originated probably in Anatolia. And basically we call her the mother goddess of nature and wild animals. And it's really amazing how widespread she was, throughout the Mediterranean. And we'll go into all of that history. In Spain itself, the Berber state was called Granada, which means the pomegranate. And a pomegranate is the ancient symbol of the goddess throughout that matriarchal culture. The Rock of Gibraltar is really the name of Gibral Cabrik, the Berber who led the Berbers from North Africa into Spain. And so that's certain. And in Granada, of course, was the Alhambra, the great red house, as we would call it. In the travel journals of Coronado, he claimed to have seen this giant red house somewhere in the desert. Nobody's been able to find it, but he's certainly studying his report that indeed these people are Berbers that he's pursuing. Berbers is just a more modern pronunciation for the Barbara, which means sons of the bear, and the bear means the constellation of the bear in its western destiny, and so forth. And these are all just mentions, I'm saying, for this view to get a line on it. And speaking of line, back to that the Spaniards had come on a road that came from the Great Salt Lake. It was quite a distance away from the village, and it's a well-known road that was 40 feet wide, packed down and with curbs on it, so it was not rugged at all. But approaching the village, what had happened, it was the summer solstice, the day of the summer solstice. And the sun priest, that's Petquin, to the name for the sun priest, had drew a line of cornmeal. And that is a real thing. This was almost 400 years ago there. And that line of cornmeal marked that the village was in ceremonial mode. And the Spaniards, of course, no doubt were ignorant of it and crossed it. And that began the hostility in the beginning of Coronado's, huge fable. How these people were up on the bulwarks of they had these walls, and they showered down rocks and hot oil and all that kind of thing. Of course, it is not. This village was dismantled, must be around the end of the 19th century, because I'd seen an old photo of it. And of course, there isn't anything in that village that's high enough for people to stand up and drop rocks down on people. They disassembled that village, and the other ones that were around there. There is no other mention at all in history of the other villages, actually 5 villages. They consolidated into a new one that they now call Halonahitiwana, basically the center place. And you do have a taller building in there in that way. So that's where it is. And my interest in this point was to emphasize the drawing of the line of the cornmeal, which then has a sacred precinct to it, and that still is. And one way I introduced this is that all of life is a matter of roads or paths, and there are beings. The word spirit's always hard to handle, but there are beings, that somehow are ensconced in these roads. And when we sprinkle cornmeal, it activates them. It brings them into being. Yesterday, visiting Gina Dickinson in the nursing home, I recounted this, and I actually have my little portable bowl that's down there. You can get a line on it, and sprinkle for her the cornmeal on her breast there, like that, to say, so now that you definitely will have somebody here with you with all of that. And to get the idea of why I'm going through all of this is that we're speaking of, in a simple sense, the mother goddess, the ancient mother goddess, that these people from the Eastern Mediterranean traveled to North Africa. Mauritania was the ancient country. Coronado was actually a Castilian minor officer who was on raids that across, it's only 50 miles from Spain and North Africa. And there's a latitudinal mountain range called the Jejura Mountains. And that was the place where these people lived. And so he had seen them, he had encountered them. And in his journals, he actually has likened the people he's finding here in New Mexico to those people that he saw in Morocco, as we later call it. He even goes so far as to say the way that the women are dressed there in New Mexico looks just like the women in Morocco. And there are Curtis photographs to show you what he's talking about. There's no doubt about all of this here. And then the history is going to continue. The fabrication of this, the 7 cities of Cibola. Cibola is a dialectical mistake of the Cabell. And that is what they were called in the Jejura Mountains, and it is what they were called here. And the Americans have done all the distortion in this. And what I wanted to bring here to speak of the solstice now is that here, this is a Navajo talking prayer sticks, which I've mounted in this star crystal basket. The balls of cotton means offerings, they're offerings. And then I've added this entirely for illustration as the cord, which last week the sun priest had a very long one, and he pulls it from the talking prayer sticks. He's kind of set them up in the shrine and pulled it out towards where the sun is going to come up, and sprinkle it with the cornmeal, as that this is the roadway for the sun to be able to come. So again, it's to draw a line. Back to this display here, just to finish that. This is a zuni. We use the word zuni, it's become so popular, of crushed turquoise and little stone carved animals all around it, and you can see a hole in the side of the pot. All of this is actually meant to be a home for the animal, quote, spirits that are inhabiting these little figures. Americans call this fetishes. It doesn't quite sound right, but nevertheless, that's what that's about. And these people continue to, ever since, even from years and years and years ago, make these carvings of animals. And I brought two of them that I have. One on that side's the white buffalo, and on this side, the bear. A bear is the most major there in the Zuni people. It's also the great healer, but it's also a legacy of the Sons of the Bear as well. So all of this is just to show how that these people continue to live in a way that European Americans or whatever they are utterly ignorant of, because they aboriginalized these people and have developed their own ideas about Aborigines. And these people cannot qualify as Aborigines, albeit they are First Nation people. And you don't have any idea who is mixed with. But when we were there in Zuni, generally speaking, Spanish-speaking people are not too welcomed. They give you the idea. So now that's enough to get the idea of what, this is a Navajo chant, so that the line is the line of the cornmeal. And the hey in this context, the name Eve, like Adam and Eve, is a total misrendering. You know, I don't know why, and I don't know why they didn't correct it. That's Awa. And all of the goddess name is from that, and its root form is actually Hay. You know, we would write H-Y-Y, Hay. So that's what the hey is. It means life. It means life. And also in the Navajo, may it live, may it live. There is a horizontal line, a line. There is a horizontal line, a line. Hey, now at dawn, there is a line. Now dawn boy, there is a line. Hey, at its point, when night passes, there is a line. In its rear, when it is pleasant, there is a line. Hey, it is dawn, it is dawn, now, dawn girl, it is dawn, when it dawns. Dawn moved up, now, at dawn, dawn moved up. Hey, it is sunrise, now it is sunrise. Beauty extends everywhere, in every direction. Beauty all around, beauty is settled everywhere. Hey.